My best friend stole my entire project, then called me, support, in front of executives. She didn't know I still had the metadata. I found out my best friend had been using my name for almost 2 years on a Thursday afternoon. In the middle of a meeting where everyone was clapping for her. That was the part I remember most clearly. The clapping. Not the betrayal, not the way my stomach dropped, not even the slide on the screen with my entire project renamed under her initials. Just the clapping. People around the conference table were smiling, nodding, saying things like, "This is exactly the kind of initiative we need," and, "Madison. This is incredible work." Madison, my best friend. The woman who had cried on my couch when she said no one at work took her seriously. The woman I had stayed up with until 2 in the morning helping her rewrite emails, fix presentations, prepare for interviews, and practice difficult conversations with our manager. The woman who called me her sister in every birthday post, every holiday photo, every long caption about chosen family. And there she was, standing at the front of the room, wearing the green blazer I helped her pick out, clicking through a presentation I had built from scratch, while my name appeared nowhere. Not once. Not in the notes. Not in the credits. Not even in the tiny footer. I sat there with my hands folded under the table because I did not trust them to stay still. My coworker Aaron leaned toward me and whispered, "Wait, isn't this your client retention framework?" I did not answer. Because Madison looked straight at me from the front of the room, smiled like nothing was wrong, and said, "This project has been my baby for months." My baby. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because if I did not laugh inside my own head, I might have stood up and asked her, in front of everyone, whether babies usually came from stolen Google Docs. But I stayed quiet. That was the first thing she got wrong about me. She thought quiet meant weak. She thought quiet meant scared. She thought quiet meant I would protect her reputation the same way I had protected her feelings for years. So I smiled back, just a little. And I let her finish. Because by the time that meeting ended, I already knew exactly what I was going to do. But to understand why I did not confront her that day, you need to understand what Madison was to me before she became the person I had to remove from my life. I met Madison Reed when I was 24 and new to Chicago. Still living out of 2 suitcases in a studio apartment with a heater that screamed every time it turned on. We worked at the same marketing agency then. Both entry-level, both underpaid, both pretending we knew how to be adults. She was loud in the way I wished I could be. Not obnoxious, just bright. She could walk into a room full of strangers and make it feel like she had been invited there personally. She had glossy brown hair, a big laugh, and the kind of confidence that made people forgive her for being late. Messy, dramatic, and occasionally careless. I was the opposite. I was careful, organized, the kind of person who color-coded her calendar and saved receipts in folders. I noticed details other people missed. I remembered what clients hated. I remembered what managers praised. I remembered who preferred phone calls, who preferred emails, and who only responded if you put the deadline in the subject line. Madison used to joke that together we made one functional person. "You're the brain," she would say, dropping her bag onto my desk. "I'm the personality." Back then, I thought it was harmless. Back then, I laughed. Because in the beginning, it really did feel balanced. She pulled me out of my shell. I helped her get her life together. She introduced me to friends. I edited her reports. She made sure I did not spend every weekend alone with takeout and spreadsheets. I helped her negotiate her first raise. She dragged me to karaoke even though I hated singing in public. We became the kind of friends people assumed came as a pair. If someone invited Madison, they asked if I was coming. If someone invited me, they asked if Madison knew. At work, at parties, at birthdays, at brunches, it was always Madison and Claire. Claire and Madison. Then slowly, without either of us saying it out loud, the friendship changed shape. It started small. She forgot her wallet at dinner. Once. Then twice. Then it became, "Can you cover me? I'll Venmo you when I get home." She rarely did. At first, I did not care. A meal here, a coffee there, a shared Uber. It felt petty to track money between friends. Then it became bigger. A weekend trip deposit, a hotel room, A gift for someone's baby shower that she insisted we should go half on. Except I bought it and she never sent her part. Still, I told myself she was just scattered. Madison was always scattered. That was what everyone said. She's chaotic, but she means well. She's a mess, but she has a good heart. She just needs support. And somehow, support always looked like me cleaning up behind her. At work, it happened the same way. She would call me before client meetings, panicking. Claire, I have no idea what I'm saying tomorrow. So I would help. I would make talking points. Then outlines. Then slides. Then entire strategies. She would present them with her natural confidence, and people would praise her for being bold and creative. At first, she thanked me. Privately. Always privately. You saved my life, she would say, hugging me in the hallway. Or she would text, I owe you forever. Forever turned out to be a very convenient amount of time. Because it never arrived. The first time I felt something twist in my stomach was during a team lunch. About 6 months before the Thursday meeting. Our manager, Richard, mentioned a campaign idea Madison had presented that morning. Really smart thinking, he said, very structured, very strategic. Madison smiled and dipped a fry into ketchup. I waited. Not dramatically, not expecting a speech, just a small mention. Something like, Claire helped me shape it. Something. Anything. But she only laughed and said, I guess I had a rare organized moment. Everyone laughed. I smiled too. That was what I was good at. Smiling before I had time to admit something hurt. Later, when we were alone in the elevator, I said, you know, that was mostly my outline. She blinked at me like she was confused. Then she laughed. Oh my God, Claire, don't be weird, of course I know you helped. Helped. That word landed strangely. Because I had not helped. I had built it. But I let it go. That became the pattern. She took, I noticed, she softened it, I let it go. And every time I let it go, she took a little more. By the time we moved to our second company, a mid-sized tech startup called Northline, Madison and I were no longer entry-level. I was a senior strategy coordinator. She was in partnerships, different teams, same floor, same lunch breaks, same after-work walks to the train. Northline was the kind of company that loved big personalities. People who spoke fast, made jokes in meetings, used words like disruption and momentum, and somehow turned every vague idea into a personal brand. Madison fit immediately. I did not. I did good work, but quietly. I was respected, but not celebrated. People came to me when something needed to be fixed, clarified, organized, or saved at the last minute. Madison came to me too. More than anyone. She was struggling in her new role. Partnerships sounded glamorous, but it involved contracts, reporting, client relationships, and follow-through. Madison was great at first impressions. She was terrible at the things that came after. So I helped. Again. I told myself this was friendship. When she forgot to send a partner recap, I drafted one. When she needed talking points for a renewal call, I made them. When she did not understand why a client was unhappy, I read the email thread and explained the subtext. When she got overwhelmed, she came to my apartment, curled up on my couch, and said, I swear, Claire, you're the only reason I haven't been fired. I used to think that meant she valued me. Now I understand it meant she knew exactly what I was useful for. The project she stole started as something I created to solve a problem no one wanted to admit we had. Northline was losing small business clients after the first year, not the huge accounts. Those had dedicated managers and constant attention. The smaller clients were different. They signed up excited, used the platform for a few months, got confused, felt ignored, then left quietly when renewal came around. I noticed the pattern because I was the person who read messy spreadsheets no one else opened. I saw the drop-off. I built a retention framework on my own time, not because anyone asked me to, because I could see a fix. It had 3 parts: early risk signals, automated check-ins, and a client health score simple enough that even busy account managers would actually use it. I called it the bridge model. Because the whole point was to build a bridge between the moment a client signed and the moment they decided whether to stay. I worked on it for months. Nights, weekends, lunch breaks. I tested sample data. I built a dashboard mock-up. I wrote implementation notes. I created a pilot proposal. I even drafted email templates for client outreach. Madison knew all of it. Of course she did. She was at my apartment the night I finally got the model to work cleanly. I remember because she was sitting cross-legged on my floor eating noodles straight from the container while I showed her the dashboard. "This is actually insane," she said. "Good insane or bad insane?" "Promotion insane." I laughed because I thought she was joking. She was not. She looked at the screen for a long time. Then she said, "You have to present this. I'm trying to get Richard to look at it." No, seriously, this could be huge. For 1 second, I felt seen. That was the cruel thing about Madison. She could make you feel like the most important person in the room when she wanted something from you. The next week, she asked if she could borrow parts of my model for a partner conversation. "Not the whole thing," she said quickly, "just the client risk language. I have this call with Evermark, and I think it would help me sound less useless." I hesitated. She noticed. Immediately, her face changed. "Oh, never mind, sorry, I didn't mean to overstep." There it was. The tiny gilt hook. So small you could pretend it was not there. I said, "No, it's fine, just don't share the full deck." She put a hand over her heart. "Claire, obviously, I would never." That sentence came back to me later. I would never. People say that so easily when they already know they would. For the next month, Madison asked more questions. Little ones. What did you call the first stage again? How did you define an active engagement? Could you send me that one chart? Just so I understand it better. Do you have a cleaner version of the deck? Mine looks ugly when I explain it. Every request sounded reasonable in isolation. That was how she worked. She never took the whole thing at once. She took pieces, small enough that if I objected, I would look paranoid. Then one Tuesday, Richard stopped by my desk. "Hey, Claire, quick question. Did you help Madison with that retention concept?" I looked up. My heart gave one hard beat. "Yes," I said slowly. "Why?" "She mentioned you had talked through some of the structure. Nice work supporting her." Supporting her. I remember the exact sound of my pen rolling off the desk. Click, click. Onto the floor. Richard did not notice. He was already walking away. That night, I asked Madison directly, "Did you show Richard my bridge model?" She looked annoyed for half a second before she looked innocent. That was the first time I caught the mask changing. "Not your model," she said. "I talked about a version of it." "A version?" "Claire, we brainstorm together all the time." "No, Madison, I built that." She sighed. Not guilty. Tired. As if I was being difficult. "I'm not trying to take anything from you. I just mentioned some ideas because partnerships is dealing with retention too. It's not that deep." It is not that deep. Another sentence people use when they know it is exactly that deep. I wanted to argue. I wanted to pull up timestamps, drafts, messages, every version history that proved where the work came from. But then she said, softer, "I thought you'd be happy. If leadership likes it, we both win. We both win." I wanted to believe that. So I did. That was my mistake. Not because I trusted her once. Because I kept trusting her after my body had already started warning me. The Thursday meeting happened 3 weeks later. Company-wide strategy review. Leadership present. Department heads. A few senior managers. I was there because Richard had asked me to sit in on retention data. Madison was there because partnerships was presenting new client growth opportunities. At least, that was what I thought. Then the projector screen changed. And there it was. Not bridge model. Not my title. Not my deck. The slide read, "The MR Client Loyalty System." MR. Madison Reed. For a second, I genuinely thought I was misunderstanding. Then she started talking. She used my phrases. My structure. My examples. Even one joke from my speaker notes. One I had written to make myself less nervous if I ever got the chance to present. She said, "Think of it as catching the client before they quietly walk out the back door." That was mine. I had typed that at 1:14 a.m. while sitting on my kitchen floor. Half asleep, proud of myself for finding a sentence that made the whole model feel human. She said it like it belonged to her. And everyone loved it. The room leaned in. Richard nodded. Our VP, Elaine, asked for implementation timelines. Madison said, I've already mapped out a pilot plan. My pilot plan. Then Aaron whispered, wait, isn't this your client retention framework? And Madison looked at me. Smiled. That smile told me everything. She knew I knew. She was not panicked. She was not sorry. She was testing whether I would protect her again. After the meeting, people surrounded her. Elaine said, this could change how we handle renewals. Richard said, excellent initiative. Someone from product asked if she had a dashboard prototype. Madison said, I have some rough drafts. Rough drafts. I had sent her the finished mock-up 2 days before. I walked back to my desk without speaking. Madison followed 10 minutes later. She shut the small conference room door behind us and said, before you get upset. I laughed once. Not loudly. Just enough to stop her. Before I get upset? She crossed her arms. You looked weird in there. I looked weird because I was watching you steal my work. Her eyes hardened. Then softened again. She was good at that. Claire, don't say steal. That's dramatic. What would you call it? Adaptation. I stared at her. She actually said adaptation. Like this was a branding exercise. Madison, my name is nowhere. I was going to mention you later. When? In the implementation phase. I nodded slowly. The implementation phase of my project? She rubbed her forehead. You know what? This is why I didn't tell you before the meeting. I knew you would make it emotional. That did it. Not the theft. Not the lie. That sentence. Because for years, every time I noticed something unfair, she called it emotional. Every time I asked for basic respect, she called it overthinking. Every time I named what she was doing, she acted like the real problem was my tone. I said, you need to correct this. She stared at me. What? You need to email Elaine and Richard and tell them I created the model. She laughed. Actually laughed. Claire, be serious. I am serious. No, you're angry. There's a difference. Then she stepped closer and lowered her voice. Look, you're amazing at building things. Everyone knows that, but you hate presenting. You hate visibility. I gave the idea legs. Gave the idea legs. As if my work had been lying helpless on the ground until Madison put heels on it. I said, you had until the end of the day. Her expression changed again. This time, the softness disappeared completely. And if I don't? I picked up my laptop bag. Then I stopped protecting you. She smiled like I had said something cute. Claire, you won't. That was the second thing she got wrong about me. She thought because I had forgiven her before, forgiveness was my personality. It was not. It was a habit. And habits can break. I did not go to HR immediately. That would have been too easy for her to twist. Madison knew how to cry at the right time. She knew how to say misunderstanding. She knew how to make herself look overwhelmed and me look bitter. So I did what I should have done months earlier. I got quiet. Not passive quiet. Documenting quiet. That night, I went home, opened my laptop, and searched everything. Old drafts. Email attachments. Google Doc history. Slack messages. Texts. Voice notes. Calendar invites. Screenshots. I found the first document from 4 months earlier with my title. My name, my notes. I found the dashboard mockup I had exported before Madison ever saw it. I found messages from her saying, can you send me your bridge model deck? Her words. Your bridge model. I found a voice memo where she said, I swear I won't share this without you. I played that 3 times. Not because I needed it. Because I needed to hear the exact sound of my own trust being misused. Then I found something better. A shared folder. Madison had copied my documents into her own folder but had forgotten that the original files still showed activity history. Her renamed deck had been created from a copy of mine. Same slide IDs, same hidden notes, same metadata. She had not stolen carefully. She had stolen confidently. There is a difference. Confident people make sloppy thieves. The next morning, Madison acted normal. That was almost more insulting than if she had avoided me. She sent a coffee emoji in our chat. Then, "Are we okay?" I looked at the message for a long time. Then I typed, "Of course." I hated myself for how natural it felt. But I needed her comfortable. Comfortable people keep talking. By Monday, leadership had asked Madison to develop the pilot. She messaged me before lunch. "Can you help me clean up the implementation timeline? Elaine wants details." There it was. She had stolen the house and was asking me to decorate it. I typed, "Sure, send what you have." She sent my own timeline back to me with 3 headings change. I stared at it. Then I laughed. For real this time. Because there is a point where betrayal becomes so arrogant it stops being confusing. I replied, "Looks good, maybe add ownership notes." She wrote, "What do you mean?" I said, "Who is responsible for each part?" She replied with a thumbs up. An hour later, she sent me the updated version. And there, in her own file, she assigned herself executive ownership, Richard as sponsor, partnerships as lead, and me as support. Support. Again. That word was going to bury her. I saved everything. Then I waited. The pilot planning meeting was scheduled for Friday morning. Madison asked me to join, for data backup. Data backup. Not creator. Not strategist. Backup. I said yes. On Thursday night, she came over to my apartment like nothing had changed. She brought cheap wine and takeout. The old ritual, the one we used when one of us was stressed. I almost told her not to come. But some part of me needed to see her up close one last time before I stopped pretending. She sat on my couch, kicked off her shoes, and sighed dramatically. "I'm exhausted." I looked at her from the kitchen. "Big week. You have no idea." I almost said, "Actually, I do." I wrote it. But I poured water instead. She talked for 20 minutes about how much pressure she was under. How Elaine expected so much now. How Richard suddenly treated her like a rising star. Then she said, "I know things have been weird with us." I leaned against the counter. "Do you?" She nodded, eyes wide and wet. "I just feel like you're not happy for me." There it was. The final insult dressed as vulnerability. I said, "Madison, did you ever plan to tell them the model was mine?" She looked down at her hands. For 1 second, I thought maybe she would tell the truth. Then she said, "I think you're too attached to ownership." Too attached. To my own work. I said nothing. She continued, softer now. "We're a team. We always have been. You're good behind the scenes. I'm good in the room. Why does that have to be a bad thing?" Because behind the scenes is not the same as under your shoe. But I did not say that. I only asked, "Do you really believe that?" She looked relieved, like she thought she had almost won. "I do." That was when I knew there was nothing left to save. Not
I
because
wanted
she
to look
stole
like
from
someone
me,
who had stopped
because
apologizing
she had
for
built an
taking up
entire
space.
moral system where stealing
The
from
pilot
me made
meeting
sense.
had 12 people in it.
The next morning,
Elaine,
I wore the navy
Richard,
blazer Madison
product,
once said made me look
client
intimidating.
success,
Data. Good. Partnerships. Madison arrived 5 minutes late. Breathless. Charming. Carrying iced coffee. Sorry. Elevator drama. Everyone smiled. Of course they did. She opened her laptop and connected to the screen. The first slide appeared. The MR client loyalty system. Still. I felt my heart beat once. Hard. Then settle. Madison started speaking. She was good, I will give her that. She knew how to sell a room. She talked about client trust, risk reduction, proactive care. She used her hands. She made eye contact. She made people believe she had thought deeply about things she had barely read. Then Elaine asked, "Madison, before we move into implementation, can you walk us through how you originally developed the framework?" Madison smiled. "Absolutely." I looked down at my notebook. This was the moment. Not the revenge. The invitation. She could have fixed it. Even then. She could have said, "Claire and I developed the foundation together." It would not have been fully honest, but it would have been something. Instead, She said, I started noticing gaps in the partner renewal process a few months ago. And I built the model from there. I built the model. I looked up. Aaron looked at me from across the table. He knew. Maybe not everything. But enough. Madison clicked to the next slide. That was when the screen froze. Not because of me. Because her laptop lagged. Just for a second. A tiny mercy. A tiny pause. Elaine turned to me. Claire, you've been quiet, since you'll be supporting the data side. Do you see any implementation risks? Madison's eyes flicked toward me. Warning. Pleading. Threatening. All at once. I closed my notebook. Yes, I said. 1. The room shifted. I stood up, not dramatically, just enough to reach the conference table screen control. The biggest risk is that the implementation team does not actually understand the origin of the model. Madison went pale. Claire. I did not look at her. I looked at Elaine. I created the bridge model 4 months ago. The current deck is a renamed copy of my original work. I have documentation, version history, Slack messages, file metadata, and written confirmation from Madison referring to it as my model before she presented it as hers. Silence. Not regular silence. The kind of silence that has weight. Madison laughed once. Too sharp. That is not what happened. I nodded. I expected you to say that. Then I plugged in my laptop. I did not give a speech. That was important. People can argue with emotion. They struggle with timestamps. I opened the original file history. My name. Creation date. Draft 1. Draft 2. Dashboard mockup. Speaker notes. Then I opened Madison's copied version. Created 3 weeks later. Copied from my file. Same hidden notes. Same slide structure. Same chart labels. Then I opened the Slack message. Can you send me your bridge model deck? Madison's face had gone completely still. Richard leaned forward. Elaine did not blink. I opened the next screenshot. I swear I won't share this without you. Madison whispered, Claire, stop. I finally looked at her. No. 1 word. Small. Clean. Final. I did not raise my voice. I did not call her names. I did not say she was a liar. Even though everyone in that room understood. I only said, for months, I helped Madison privately because she was my friend. I did not realize she was converting my support into ownership. I am happy to lead the pilot for the model I created. I am not willing to be listed as support on my own work. Elaine closed her laptop slowly. Madison, she said, is there anything you want to clarify? Madison looked around the table. That was the first time I saw her understand the room had changed. Not because I had attacked her. Because I had removed the fog. She tried to cry. I saw it happen. The breath, the trembling lip, the hand to her chest. I never meant to hurt Claire, she said. That sentence almost made me smile. Because she still thought this was about hurt. Elaine said, that was not the question. Madison opened her mouth. Closed it. No one rescued her. Not Richard. Not partnerships. Not even the people who usually melted the second Madison looked fragile. Because evidence has a way of making charm look embarrassing. The meeting ended early. Elaine asked Madison to leave her laptop with IT for review. Madison turned to me at the door, eyes wet now for real. How could you do this to me? I looked at her for a long moment. There were so many answers. Because you stole from me. Because you used me. Because you mistook kindness for permission. Because you called me your sister while treating me like unpaid staff. But I only said, I didn't do this to you. I stopped hiding what you did to me. She flinched. Good. Not because I wanted her destroyed. Because I wanted the sentence to land somewhere she could not easily rewrite it. The fallout was quieter than people might expect. Real consequences usually are. There was no screaming in the hallway. No dramatic firing on the spot. No security escort. Just calendar invites disappearing. Slack channels going silent. Leadership meetings happening without her. HR interviews. IT reviews. Document audits. A week later, Elaine called me into her office. She had printed copies of everything. My original proposal. The copied deck. The messages. The implementation notes. She looked tired. I owe you an apology, she said. I did not expect that. For what? For not asking more questions when Madison first presented the work. We rewarded confidence without checking contribution. That sentence stayed with me. Because that is how people like Madison survive. Not just by taking, but because rooms love the person who can present the thing more than the person who quietly built it. Elaine offered me official ownership of the pilot. A temporary title bump. A bonus. And the chance to present the bridge model again, under its real name, to the executive team. This time, I said yes. My voice shook during the first 2 minutes. Then it steadied. Because I knew the work. I did not need to perform ownership. I had it. Madison resigned 3 weeks later. The official language was pursuing other opportunities. That was fine. I did not need a public punishment. The truth had already done its job. She texted me once from a new number. I hope ruining my career was worth it. I stared at the message while standing in line at a grocery store, holding a carton of eggs and a bag of oranges. For a second, the old Claire came back. The one who would explain. The one who would soften. The one who would say, I didn't want it to happen this way. But then I remembered her standing in that conference room, saying, this project has been my baby for months. I remembered, support. I remembered, you're too attached to ownership. So I typed back, you built your career on my silence. I just stopped being quiet. Then I blocked her. The strange thing about losing a best friend is that people expect you to only feel anger. I did not. I missed her. That was the part one hated admitting. I missed the version of Madison who showed up with soup when I had the flu. I missed the girl who danced badly in my kitchen. I missed the friend who knew my coffee order, my mother's birthday, my fear of public speaking, my favorite Thai place, and exactly when to send a stupid meme because I was spiraling. But missing someone does not mean they should be allowed back in. That was the lesson. Some people are not fake all the time. That is what makes them dangerous. If Madison had been cruel from the beginning, I would have walked away easily. But she was warm too, funny too, generous sometimes, loving when it cost her nothing. And that kept me confused for years. I thought good memories canceled out bad patterns. They do not. A person can make you laugh and still use you. A person can call you family and still steal from you. A person can know your wounds and still press on them when it benefits them. Months later, the bridge model became part of Northline's client retention process. Renewals improved. My team grew. I learned how to present without apologizing every third sentence. Aaron once joked that I had become quietly terrifying, and I took it as a compliment. But the real victory was smaller. It happened one evening when a junior employee named Priya came to my desk holding a draft proposal. She looked nervous. I don't want to be annoying, she said, but I made this thing, and I want to make sure I'm credited correctly if it moves forward. For a second, I saw myself. Younger. Careful. Already trained to make ownership sound like an inconvenience. I turned fully toward her and said, that is not annoying, that is smart. Let's make sure your name is on every version. Her shoulders dropped with relief. That was when I understood what justice really gave me. Not revenge. Not satisfaction. A standard. A line. A new rule for every room I entered after that. I no longer call exploitation friendship. I no longer confuse being needed with being valued. And I no longer shrink my name so someone louder can look bigger standing on my work. Madison thought she stole a project. She did not. She stole the last version of me who would have let her get away with it. And honestly, that version of me was overdue to disappear.